Hello everyone and welcome to tutorial number 27 in a series of video tutorials for Java programming. In the last tutorial I talked about the finalize method, nested and inner classes and variable length arguments. So if you are interested in learning about these concepts, then you can go and watch the last tutorial number 26. So in this tutorial, first of all, I am going to talk about this inner method, inner class. In the last tutorial, if you remember, I struggled a lot to create object of the non-static class. Okay. So after, the tutorial, I explored a little bit and I understood how to create object of the non-static class. So let's create that now. Okay, so first of all you need to write tutorial.inner. Okay, you cannot write inner here, that is not going to work. You cannot write inner here. Okay, let us see what happens if you try to write inner here, but that's not going to work, I think. Okay, obviously it's not going to work because tutorial.this cannot be referenced from a static context. So what you need to do instead is you need to write new tutorial dot new inner. Okay, so that's the change which you need to do. Okay, actually even inner directly if you write inner, it is working, it is not creating any problems, and you can see it is not showing any errors here as well. All right, so that is the thing which I did not do properly. Last time what I did was I removed this bracket and I did not write a new keyword here. So it was giving this error. Tutorial.this cannot be referenced from a static context. But you need to remember one thing, this inner. Okay, this inner, it is a non-static class. So first of all, I need to mandatorily create the object of tutorial class. Okay, then after that, I need to create new. I need to write new here once again. Okay, because new tutorial, this is a object of tutorial class. Then after that I am accessing this particular inner class. So if I am going to create the object of this inner class, then I need to write new inner. Okay, so that is how we can create a object of a non-static class. Then after that I am going to simply call this display method. So if I press the run button now, it is going to print out this particular statement. All right, so let us see what happens. Yeah, it is printed out this thing. Okay, it has printed out this thing. Okay, so that is how we are going to access that is create the object of a non-static class. Okay, so that was left out in the last tutorial. Actually I got a little bit confused, so I just wanted to clear how to create object of the inner class in this tutorial. So now let us talk about inheritance. Let us talk about the concept of inheritance. So inheritance is nothing but when the object is when a class is accessing all the properties of its parent class. Like for example, this is a tutorial. Okay, this is implicitly extending all the properties of the object class, which is specified in this object.java class. Okay, so now usually if you are opening an IDE, this object.java will not be accessible. All right, so now let us try to create one additional class, and I'm going to use this class, okay, which I've already created, and I am going to extend from tutorial. Okay, so let's do that. Extends tutorial. Now I'm going to add certain methods here, not a certain methods. I'm going to add certain variables int ij, let us say ijk only. Okay, so now inside this particular method protector void display, I'm going to write I. Okay, if I write I, it is accessible. You can see it right here. The reason why it is accessible is because this class, it is extending from tutorial. Extending from tutorial means example. Okay, this example, it is a child class, and tutorial, it is the base class. All right, So tutorial, it is, giving some of its properties, some of its variables, okay, to this particular class. But you need to keep in mind that the access specifier of the, these variables are public in nature. So, however, if I make this private, if I make this as private, then I cannot access I here. I is not accessible right here. Even I cannot access J, I cannot access K. Okay. Okay, so these are the things which you need to keep in mind. These access specifiers are very, very important, and they are going to change, the visibility of the variables inside the child class. If I make this as public, you can see very well that the error will go away now. Okay, the error will go away. K will get accessible. Like for example, I write K equals 5. Okay, so now there is no error. Only one warning is coming. Okay, so these are the things which you need to keep in mind. But the very second I make it private, okay, then it will give an error. It will say K is not accessible, and it is even giving one error here, K as private access in tutorial. Private access means it is visible only to the tutorial class. Okay, public means it will be visible everywhere. Okay, in the subclasses or even in non-subclasses it will be visible. But if I make this protected, if I make this protected, okay, then it will be visible to its subclass. So basically this protected this access specifier, it is in between public and private. Okay, because private means it is visible only to this particular class. Okay, if I make this public, it will be visible everywhere, whether it is subclass or whether it is non subclass. However, if I make it if I make it protected, it will be visible only to the this particular class, base class, and this particular class. All right, so that's all is about this sub that's all about the basic concept of inheritance. Okay, now that I think about it, I am going to remove this extension. I am going to remove this inheritance, and I am going to derive from the example class. And in any case, the concept is going to remain the same. Okay, now this is a protected void display method. So if I write display here, so I think it is not working because this is a non-static method. So first of all, I need to create the object. Okay. Then after that, I need to do display. Okay. So then it is working. So these, now this display class, you can see right here that in the inside the tutorial class, I have not defined display anywhere. The display is not defined in this class, but display it is defined in example class. But because of inheritance, I am able to access the this particular display method. Okay, actually it is a method. I am able to access this display method from tutorial class. All right. So now these are the basic concepts of inheritance. Okay, so then after that I am going to talk about super. So let us say I don't even need to write this. Let us simply write super dot display. If I write super dot display, then it is working, but however, you cannot reference it from a static context. So these are the things which you need to keep in mind. You cannot write super inside a static method, and you cannot write this inside a static method. That is also not going to work. Okay, because this refers to the current object. Okay, and there is this static methods, they don't belong to an object. I have repeated it a lot of times in the previous tutorials. But the this keyword, it cannot be accessed in a static method, or super keyword also cannot be accessed in a static method. So what's the other way out? The only way out is, because this is a non-static method. Okay, otherwise if you want to access, you can simply make it as static, and you can simply call display. Okay, if you make it static, you can simply call it a display, and because of inheritance, this method, it will be visible over here. All right, so now I'm going to show you how you're going to call the super method. So let us so how we're going to use the super keyword. So first of all, let us create the object of tutorial. Okay, So this is the default constructor. All right. So now I'm going to call the super method. Okay, so I'm going to use super, then after that I'm going to put the parenthesis. So this super, it is going to call the default constructor of the example, default constructor of this example class. And as I said earlier, you don't need to mandatorily define the default constructor. The compiler, it is going to automatically define the default constructor. So if even if this thing is not defined, okay, the program will still get executed. Okay, so this super, it is going to call this particular constructor. All right. So now, the one thing which you need to keep in mind is that this super, it should be the first, first statement. Like for example, let me explain. Let me create three variables here: public int I, j, k. Okay. So these are public variables and they will be visible in this tutorial class. So I can write I equals to 68. Then, the compiler right away it starts complaining. So what is the complaint? Call to super must be the first statement in the constructor body. So these are the certain things which you need to keep in mind. Call to super, it must always be the first statement in the constructor body. So you need to write super first. Then after that you can write whatever you want to write here. Okay, but super, this statement, it should always be the first statement. All right. Then now this super was used for whenever you are invoking the constructor, this should be the first statement. Okay, let us see what happens if I am trying to invoke the this particular class. Okay, and remember this tutorial, this is a non-static kind of method, because obviously constructor is also a method only, but it is invoked in a different manner. So this is a non-static method. So let us try to invoke it using super.display. Super.display. Okay, I think that is not possible because I made this as a non-static. Okay, so I am going to remove this thing now. Then after that, super.display. Okay, so then after that I'm writing I equals 75. So what you seeing here is, even though I have called super.display in the second line of the constructor, okay, it is not giving any errors. So the only thing which you need to keep in mind is the call to the constructor. Call to the constructor, that should be the first statement. Okay, I cannot invoke the constructor here, because indirectly what I'm doing is I am calling, whenever I'm using this statement super, I am invoking this particular constructor. All right, so this should always be the first statement in the construct body of the constructor. And this super.display I can call anywhere. I can even call this over here, but obviously because this is a static method, it is not going, it is not allowed. Okay, if I create a, let us say, a non-static method, let us say, tut or something, because tutorial is the class name, I cannot use tutorial here. So if I, cut paste it, then you can see that it is not giving any errors here. Okay, and I can write whatever I want to, write here. Okay, so this super.display calling the method, it can appear anywhere. But however, if I'm going to invoke the particular constructor, that constructor should always be the first statement. Okay, in the constructor. Okay, here you need to write super as the first statement. You cannot misplace this underneath this particular I equals 75. That is not going to work. All right, but this super.display, this is going to call this method, and you can misplace it, it is not going to give any errors, but obviously the logic should be correct. All right, so that is about super keyword. Okay, it can be used to call super.I also. It can be used to access the this variables also. Okay, that is also allowed, obviously. Okay, but we don't generally use this, because we can simply write I equals 75 and it is going to work. Okay. So the basic main two usages of the super keyword is, first of all, to call the method of the base class, okay, of the method of the parent class, and second thing is to invoke the constructor of the parent class. So that is exactly what we are doing here. All right. So this was for invoking the constructor of the parent class. This is the parent class right now. Okay, because I'm extending example. Example is the parent class and tutorial is the it is the child class. All right. So these were the two usages of super. Now I'm going to talk about superclass reference. Okay. So I think in this tutorial I'll be talking about method overriding. Then after that, in the next tutorial we'll be talking about all the other remaining concepts. So first of all, let us talk about superclass reference. So what is the concept of the superclass reference? The concept of superclass reference is something like this. You know, the reference of superclass. Okay, in this case example is the superclass, as I told you just now. Okay, it is the superclass, it is the parent class, it is the base class. Okay, there are many words which we can use for the parent class. Okay, it can be called as parent class, it can be called as superclass, it can be called as the base class. Okay, so these are certain, don't get confused by, the different words or the different terms which are used for referring to the parent class. All right. So this is the super class or the parent class. Then, I am going to create a reference here. Okay. Now this is the super class reference. Then this superclass reference, it can point to the object of the child class. So let us create the object of the child class, and it is giving no errors. See this tutorial, this is a child class, okay, because this tutorial it is extending from example. Okay, so this particular superclass reference, it is pointing to object of the child class. Okay, however, one thing you need to keep in mind, this particular thing is mandatory. Inheritance is mandatory. If I remove inheritance, it will give an error. It will say, cannot change, convert tutorial to example. Okay, so this thing is mandatory. You cannot write it just like that. Okay, this thing works only if inheritance is there. Okay, this thing will not work if there is no inheritance. So don't get confused, and you can make mistakes like this. It is possible. So that's why I'm saying inheritance is mandatory, and only if you use inheritance, then the superclass reference can point to object of the child class. All right. So this thing is perfectly allowed. Then after that, I'm going to call the display method. So inside the display method, I'm going to write something. So let us write something like this is the base class. Okay, base class method, something like that. Okay, base class display method. So now I'm, when I press this run button, it is going to display base class display method. All right, and it is printing, the same thing. So, one thing you need to keep in mind is superclass reference can always refer to object of the child class, but however, the reverse is not true. What do you mean by that? You cannot, this is the tutorial, okay? This is tutorial. Obviously, right now the output is going to remain the same, okay? But that is not what I meant. That is not what I meant. What I meant is the the reference of the child class. It cannot point to object of the base class. You cannot write example here. It is not going to work. Okay, it is not going to work. Of course, it can work, but if you need to work, you need to explicitly cast it. You need to write a tutorial here. Okay, so then again there is a possibility that it is going to cast an example. Okay, if there is a any non-null value, it is causing class cast. Let us see what happens. So it is not going to work, as I said earlier. Okay, so it is not going to work. So one thing you need to keep in mind is the reference of the child class. It cannot point to object of the base class. Okay, but the reference of the super class, it can point to object of the child class. All right. So now I'm going to talk about method overriding, and I'm going to call the this tutorial. I'm going to end this tutorial. So this is the method which is present in the base class. If I define the same method, okay, if I define the same method, remember this is not method overloading. Okay, so this is method overriding. I'm going to define the exact same method. Okay, now if you are familiar with using this particular IDE, you can see this symbol right here. And if you hover over it, it is saying it is overriding the method in example. So which method it is overriding? This method. Even the it is redirecting the cursor over here. And you can see the symbol once again here. Okay, and if you over it, it is saying it is overridden in tutorial. That means the exact same definition has to be followed. Okay, return type has to be the same. Okay, the this okay, this can remain, you can make this public here. Okay, you can make this public here. It is not going to give any errors, but one thing which you need to keep in mind is you cannot make it private here. It is not allowed. Okay, display in tutorial, it is flashing with display in example, but attempting to assign weaker access privileges, it is not allowed. So if it is already protected, you can make it only as either protected or you can make it as public, because you need to remember one thing, that private, it is a weaker access privilege. Okay, it can be accessible only in that particular method, so it has to be either public or protected. All right, then after that, I'm going to just simply copy this, and I'm going to change the method, change the message a little bit. So I'm going to call, type derived here. Then after that, I'm going to use this particular, once again, I'm going to create a superclass reference. E equals to new tutorial, obviously. Okay, then e dot display. E dot display. So then after that, if I press on the play button, okay, which method is going to get executed? What do you think? Is it going to execute this method, or is it going to execute this method? It is going to execute this method only. So let us press on the play button, and it is going to show derived class display method. All right. Now one additional thing which I would like to add, okay, before calling off this tutorial, is that if I rename this tutorial to example, you need to understand that this is creating object of this class. Okay, this is creating object of this class. So let us see what happens if I press the play button. It is calling this method. Okay, and what happens if I remove the definition of this method? Obviously it is going to call, it is the same method, base class display method. Okay, because actually I should have renamed this to tutorial. So if I rename it to tutorial, then once again it is going to print the same thing. Okay, so that was about the concept of method overriding. Okay, so in the next tutorial I'll be talking about abstract classes and abstract methods, and after that we'll be talking about the final methods and final classes as well. So that's what I'm going to talk about in this particular tutorial. If you have any kind of questions, or if you have any kind of doubts, then don't forget to post in the comment section below, and I will get back to you when I can. And if you liked this particular tutorial, then don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and I will see you in the next tutorial. So till then, bye.